right, guys, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Apologize for making y'all wait. We're going to go ahead. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Allie Rye. I am the Deputy Cabinet Secretary for New Mexico's Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. So the easiest way for me to explain that to you guys is I work for the governor. And I'm here on behalf of her. I'm here to be able to communicate to you guys and listen to your concerns, your questions, and be able to communicate that information back up. So before we get started tonight, there's always one way that I like to start, and it's a little bit of feedback from you guys. So from everyone in the auditorium, if you're here to hear updates about the agricultural issues, can I get you to raise your hand, please? The agricultural issues, is that better? Is that a little better? Okay, yeah, ag issues. Okay, if you're here to get an update on the Clayton's office, can I get you to raise your hand? Fantastic. If you're here for another reason other than those two reasons, can I get you to raise your hand? Okay, so mainly everybody's here to listen for updates on the claims office. Okay, so before I turn it over to Jen, that is going to be what she is mainly focused on our first half of the evening tonight. Can I get my staff, so if you work on disaster case management, if you're an advocate for the advocate's office, or if you're a navigator for the claims office, can I get you to either raise your hand or stand, depending on how easy it is for you to do that? Okay, guys, so if you see the folks who are raising their hands tonight, those are people for you to be able to tag to and ask questions once we start breaking at the end of the evening, okay? So remember those faces, because they're here to be able to support you guys and get the answers that you need. All right, so I think before I kick it off to Jen, there's a couple of things I want to let you guys know. We will be taking questions between presenters, and then we'll be saving all the large questions for the end of the evening. That also goes for folks who have questions on the Zoom. We will be monitoring the Zoom chat and reading notes. Kristen, did I forget anything? No. Okay, thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jennifer Carvajal. I'm the Deputy Director of the Hermit's Peak Cap Canyon Claims Office, and it is an honor and a privilege to be here supporting our community. I know I wasn't born and raised in Mora, San Miguel, but I moved here in 2017 with my wife from DC, and ever since I got here, I fell in love with the community, and I knew I wanted to be a part of the recovery when the fires happened. I'm here to announce some really good news. I know that we've all been patiently waiting and frustrated and stressed for almost going on 2 years. But within the last 7 weeks, we have made huge strides in a really short amount of time. Thank you. It's been a journey for sure, but we've brought in 100 people have deployed in to help us get our staff plumbed so we can start processing these claims quicker, faster, meeting with people, making sure that we're providing everyone with the maximum amount of compensation that you're owed allowable under the law. For that reason, tonight, we set up a little early and we had we partnered with the state, and we have some disaster case managers as well as some navigators out here in the lobby foyer area. They're here to help explain the process, let you know about the notice of loss. That's the first step in the process. You submit a notice of loss. We have notice of losses here that you can fill out. We also can work with you to check on your claim if you've already submitted your notice of loss and are working on the second half of it, which is the proof of loss. Another huge accomplishment that we made in 2024 is in January, we published documentation checklists. This is really big because there's different categories of losses you can claim. And before January, we did not have one single checklist to say, you need these documents for this category. And so by finalizing those checklists for all the different categories, now the public, the navigators, the reviewers, the authorizing officials, everybody has a standardized document that we all know what's required to submit and for what different category. And the good news is for the ones that had multiple things you can submit, we're requiring one. So that's huge as well. In the past, we were figuring it out, and so we couldn't necessarily say what you could or couldn't because we were figuring it out. Well, now we figured it out. Now we have documentation checklists. Something else that we have is a program and policy guide. The program and policy guide is public. We've spent a lot of work and people have been reviewing it for a long time, pretty much since 2022. And so now the program and policy guide is final. I meant to bring one in, but I'm going to steal Shauna's here. This is what it looks like. If you'd like a copy, it is public. We will be having them at different events. And what the program and policy guide does is it shares how we're making decisions in the claims office. It talks about how all the different categories are being looked at, assessed, compensated, and it describes the process. So it sheds some light on a process that up until now really had been in development. Now that it's past development, we're looking at making it faster, more streamlined, and improving it. So it did take some time to get the process ironed out. It's a brand new program. This is only the second time this has ever been done in FEMA. The last time was over 20 years ago. And so we did utilize some of the lessons learned based off that implementation of a compensation program. And I'm really excited about all the progress we've made in the last 7 weeks. So I mentioned the claim is 2 parts. You start off by submitting a notice of loss. Your notice of loss is basically just like a figurative putting up your hand. I might qualify for something and I want to work with the claims office. After you submit a notice of loss, you get assigned a navigator, unless you have a third-party representative like attorney. If you have an attorney, they work directly with the claims reviewer. If you don't have an attorney, you get assigned a navigator who helps talk to you about your experience, see what you might qualify for. And now that we have the checklist, they will also go through the checklist with you to see what documentation that you have available to provide. When they start working with you on collecting the documentation, that's packaged together in what's called the proof of loss. So the proof of loss is submitted once you have all the documentation to strengthen your claim. Once you sign your proof of loss, it goes through 2 review cycles where we make sure that you have everything that you need to, and if we identify something that's missing, we'll go back to you and make sure that we request that information. So we're now implementing requests for information letters. So instead of just pushing it through, we're going to go back and say, hey, we need this, and we're reaching out to let you know. So that way it strengthens the probability of your claim getting compensated to the maximum amount allowable under the law, of course. That compensation determination is issued to you in the form of a letter of determination. Internally, we call it the LOD. We've issued over 800 LODs in the past 7 weeks. So the termination letters are going out there. Additionally, within the past week, maybe 2 weeks now, we've had over 100 people coming into the office to submit new notices of loss for smoke damage. So we're getting money out there and we're getting people in the door. We also want to let you know that we highly encourage everyone, if you haven't already applied for flood insurance, please get your claim in for flood insurance by the 1st of March. I know that that's only a few weeks away, but we're asking everyone to make that effort to get it in by the 1st of March because the hard deadline is the 1st of April. And so we don't get slammed on the 1st of April. We're just asking people, if you haven't applied for flood insurance yet, please come forth and apply for it by the 1st of March. These policies are 5-year policies. And if you previously applied and got a 1-year policy, it's going to be automatically converted to a 5-year policy. In addition to flood insurance, we cover property loss, financial loss, relocation costs, evacuation costs. So even if you weren't affected in any other way but evacuations, you qualify for evacuation costs. So please, I encourage you to come forth and submit a notice of loss. Something else we're covering is risk reduction. So if you need to do something to your property to reduce the risk of there being impacts in the future because of flooding, that's compensable. So you can come forth and talk to us about what are the different things that I could do to reduce the risk in my property, and we can pay for that. Something else that I think is a significant point that we need to talk about is reopening a claim. So if you file a notice of loss for the fire, historically, that's one event. If you work your way all through the whole process for that event and your losses, and you get a final letter of determination, that doesn't necessarily mean the door's completely closed. If in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, you realize, oh yeah, I also qualified for this loss because of the fire, you can come to the claims office and request to reopen your claim for that additional loss for the same event. Now, I know that we're going to be struggling with flooding for a while, for many years. So if you have losses that haven't happened yet, say there's a flood that happens 2 months from now, that's when you submit a new notice of loss. So just want to delineate between if you get the final payment, that doesn't necessarily mean it's final if you have more losses with the same event. But if you incur new losses for a new event, come forth and submit a new notice of loss. We also have officially stood up our appeals and arbitration branch. So we're starting to work through the first few appeals that have come through the process. And we are really looking at them critically to make sure that because we were developing the process, if there's anything that we did along the way where we need to address it in order to give you the maximum compensation allowable under the law, we're making every effort to do that. I talked about documentation checklists. I talked about the PPG. Oh, I mentioned that there's hundreds of people coming into the claims office to submit notice of loss for smoke and ash damage. So if your property, your household goods suffered any kind of smoke damage and you had to have it professionally cleaned or you cleaned it, you can come in and file a claim for that smoke damage. We've developed a process where it should be very streamlined, and everybody in Mora and San Miguel has a high likelihood of getting their claim processed quickly for that smoke damage. Okay, I'm gonna end on some high notes and some numbers for people that are the numbers people. I mentioned that we've awarded over 800 or issued 800 letters of determination in the past 7 weeks. To date, we've approved $383 million in payments. That's 69% of the 556 millions in claims. So of all the notices of loss and the proofs of loss, it totals 556 that have been requested, and we've already paid out 383 million of that dollars. The top 3 areas that we've been awarding compensation for are number 1, land improvements, number 2, reforestation, and number 3, debris removal. We recognize that it's taken some time. And for that, I apologize. I wish it could have gone faster, but I promise you that everybody that's in the office, no matter if they're from the community or if they've deployed in from around the country, we're really working hard to make sure that we get things through as quickly as we can. I love that on the walls here, there's some motivational speeches. And so in particular, if you're not sure, ask questions. We want to share the information. There will definitely be a lot of information coming out now that we have finalized the program and policy guide, and we have the documentation checklist out there, and we're just going to get through it together. And I really appreciate everybody coming out.
It's just so getting that 100 that their students' outcomes don't change until adult behavior changes. That's my favorite one. That's my favorite one, and anytime you like. I know of individuals, children burned back that are still homeless. Where are they going to get home? It's nearly 2 years, and how do you explain to a child another birthday away from their home, another birthday where they don't have a house to go home to, that stairs that they can call, this is my bed, this is my living room, these are my things, because all of it was off. How much longer for those homeless individuals? Shouldn't they have been prioritized and be put under a roof? The people that live here full time should have been priority.
Absolutely. I mentioned that I'm here to bear some really good news, and I'm really happy to be able to share that we have partnered with the state and the disaster case managers for exactly the reason you're saying. If there is a family that has an urgent, immediate need that we have not addressed, we have a streamlined, fast lane to get them the compensation they need to get in housing as quickly as possible. Allie can talk about it a little more, but we have dedicated people that when that need is highlighted, we streamline it through and we get the funding to them rapidly. We did address that. We did acknowledge that it took some time to get that in place, but it is in place now. I really encourage you bring that forth because I agree. We definitely need to take care of families that have immediate urgent needs. Did you have anything to add to that, Allie?
So that's actually part of my talking points, but so we're going to hand out disaster case manager cards right now. These are immediate contact phone numbers for you guys to be able to reach out to someone from the state programs. So that way, if for some reason you're having issues with your claim, if you have resources that the claims office cannot fulfill immediately, we're here to be able to advocate for you guys. We're here to be able to find local resources in order to fit those needs. Maybe it's short term or long term, whichever the case may be. I will tell you, ma'am, I deeply apologize. That has never been our intention, is for someone to feel that way. But my biggest thing is I don't know about it unless someone tells me. So what I would love to do is connect with you after this so that way we can get immediate details. So that way we can start getting folks into homes, because that is the last thing any of us want. Is we want someone to feel like they're home. And especially, I mean, I hear you loud and clear every night. They want to go home, but I can only imagine, when you start talking about Christmases and birthdays and things like that, it means a lot. So I really, if you can't connect with me, I mean, I'm here all night after we get done. Ashley to my right, she's my right hand woman. She takes care of me, but I also have staff in here. We would love to hear specifics.
What do you know? They think they're supposed to build it. Who cares? Who cares? These two kids are not facilitated to anything.
No.
They have to go to counseling because they get traumatized with other fires that are going on. They're not doing well in school. How do you tell them? How do you tell them it's okay, Hito? It's okay, Hita. You know what? You guys are going to get into a home. When?
Yeah.
How do you put an answer to that when?
Well, you shouldn't have to. So let us be there. Let us figure out a resource to get them a home. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Understanding with regards to this point, people who have been home with nothing for almost 2 years. You say you're going to compensate them now and help them get a home. How are you going to compensate them for the lives that they lost, essentially, for the last 2 years? That needs to be part of the compensation. Oh, I didn't know if you.
Without the, that we're using our entitlement to sue too. Because it seems like anytime there's a help from FEMA or somebody else, we have to sign some kind of documents there. We will forfeit our right to sue.
So what you're referring to is when we issue a letter of determination, you have two options. You can accept it or you can appeal it. There's a new policy that we implemented in December where there's different line items for the categories of loss. You now have the ability to accept the ones you agree with and appeal the ones that you don't off the same letter. That's one part. The other part is that we've revised the release and certification form to enable you to come back and appeal those line items that you did not agree with. So that is a recent development. And as we continue to improve this process continually, we want to adjust it to give the maximum amount of flexibility so that we can address things like we just mentioned.
Is that internal appeal or is that litigation appeal?
As far as the letter of determination,
The line item, accepting the line item and being able to appeal, is that an internal FEMA appeal or is that an appeal from the courts?
so the process is if you don't agree with a line item, the first step is to appeal, and we do have an independent internal appeal process. If you don't agree with the appeal, you can request to go to arbitration. If you don't agree with the arbitration, you can take it to federal court. So there's several steps in the process that we've implemented to try and get it to resolution quickly, as opposed to if you just went straight to federal court, that may take a lot longer in the form of several years. So we wanted to be able to address it before that.
Two more questions?
Hey,
I have two questions for the moment. First of all, I know there's been some concern over time and then some debate about about the state attorney general's opinion on this. But is there any reconsideration of non-monetary loss? Because just the things that you all discussed, people have suffered. I just received word from my friend Hermit died yesterday. That's the third one I've had die from a heart attack within a village of 50 people. People have suffered. So non-monetary loss should be a part of compensation. I feel strongly. The other piece is the state office. Is this part of what was created a long time ago through the State Department of Homeland Security?
Are you talking about disaster case management?
Right.
No, ma'am, this is brand new.
This is brand new, but is it tied to, because that was a wonderful program that got killed before it had a chance to work, because FEMA apparently didn't want to work with it. So I am so thrilled that the state is getting involved, because I think things are going to be better. And Jennifer, you're going to have to go with that, because you're going to catch the heat, because we have been wrong. Am I right? And I also would like to say, this is not a question, but be prepared that the trust level is not good. If you're going to have an uphill road to get the trust of the people back. But I know you, and I think you're going to try. I want you all to do that. I know her. She's going to try to make it right. Let's give her a chance.
We're just gonna let you know that. It's, you know, with everything, flooding, everything, yeah.
All right. We're gonna take.
That's one question.
Where's Raven?
Sure.
She's not coming to do anything at Easton?
Well, I think she is. He just wanted to have a car.
What took you guys so long? It's 6 o'clock. I talked to you at 4:30 and you said you guys were leaving.
Stuff to get something to eat.
Oh, you went and ate? To eat at a restaurant or what? Where'd you eat at? What restaurants do they have out there?
Mute, please.
We can't hear the meeting.
I don't hear anybody.
Hi, I let them know they're trying to figure it out. Something happened on their end.
Okay.
for claims office, I think you need to mute the claims office Zoom and you need to unmute the claims office camera.
Try now.
You ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm on it on my phone.
Information coming out of FEMA, yet they seem to be constantly asking us for more information. A person has to wonder that thinks about this is that if FEMA had to pay pain and suffering, might they have gotten these claims taken care of sooner? Because without that, holding them back, they would have done it faster. If they don't have to, then they're at will to take as long as they want to, losing, going past deadlines and whatnot. And we're all left just sitting here going, well, what are you going to do to us next?
Exactly.
How many more questions are you going to ask us?
I understand why you might feel that way.
Is it true?
And those of you that know me know that it's a strength and a weakness that I am very, very candid and forthcoming. So I'm going to tell you the truth, sir. The truth is, setting up the entire process for a $4 billion compensation program in the federal government doesn't happen quickly. And that would have been independent of whether or not non-economic losses were included. We would still have to set up the same process where we establish the official policy, the regulations, the guidance, bring on the staff, and we're figuring it out. In the past, 2023, we figured it out. 2024, we're making it better. So I want to
add one more little thing to that.
Yes, sir.
What is the percentage of claims that you have paid on, and how are we to know whether or not you actually even looked at our claims? It's coming up on 180 days. We've got nothing from the attorney. We get nothing from FEMA at all. Let us know where it's at. Where are we? Are we a month away? Are we a year away?
So we can give you an update on your claim, regardless if you have a third-party attorney or not. So we have a helpline you can call. You can also walk into any of our 3 public offices, either in Mora, San Miguel, or Santa Fe. And if you have an attorney and you want to receive an update on your claim as far as the status and where it's at, we have a form that you have to sign just that says, I acknowledge I have an attorney, but I still want to talk directly with the claims office to get an update on my claim. So we can give updates, sir.
They say they couldn't help us. and they were looking over their shoulder like they were gonna get caught up in it.
No, that shouldn't have happened, and,
I think it shouldn't have happened, but why
I
did it
agree.
happen? And what do we, when are we gonna hear some information out of you?
And 2 years later, then we're getting assessed again by FEMA, saying that they need to come and re-inspect the property when they've been there out there 5 times already.
That's a really, really good point, and we hear you. The reason that the site inspections have been requested in the past is because we had not implemented additional measures to try and assess properties that didn't involve a site inspection. So I'm going to mention several things throughout the program tonight that are new. And I understand and appreciate the fact that it's been frustrating because we didn't have these before. But now we are using GIS imagery data to help us assess whether or not a property had burn impact without having to go to the property. So it's as simple as us pulling up the imagery and looking at what it looked like before the fire and after the fire, and that is reducing the amount of physical site inspections that we have to do tremendously. And we're also looking at additional technological tools to help reduce the number of site inspections, because we acknowledge those do take time.
That means flooding also, right?
Yes, sir. I do. Well, there's several maps, and always, as the case with any of other losses, if you have documentation to support your claim, please bring it forth, and we will consider all in the determination of your claim. In the sake of respecting everyone's time, I am going to turn it over to the next.
May I speak now? I've been waiting. It has to do with your timeline.
Yes, ma'am.
The law and the appropriation was done in September. It took you months and months and months to come out with regulations that were your regulations that you were to follow. They are law. We had to wait and wait and wait before we could make claims. I went in person to FEMA 7 times in person before anything happened. I finally filed my notice of loss on May 18th, 2023. 3 weeks later is when you were required by your regulations to acknowledge that notice of loss. That would have been June 8th, 2023. My notice of loss was finally acknowledged at the end of August 2023.
Well,
I submitted my
this is interesting. I'm typing with their office right now during this hearing.
18 attachments.
I provided you with 300 pictures of my ranch that had 83 of its 100.
According to your guidelines.
I'm sorry, can folks mute because
Okay? I didn't hear anything from anybody. I called the lawyers and they checked up on it. You say you did not receive my proof of loss. That was on February 9th, last week. My 180 days for you to respond to my proof of loss is on February 20th. That is next week. I know you're not going to make it. And everybody in here has experienced the same thing, I would imagine, if they have filed their proof of loss. You are in violation of your own regulations, your own legal regulations. Even if we follow the rules, you do not. You do not. I repaired my driveway 3 times at my expense. I have put up a wall this high behind my house to protect it because nobody else would. We are done. We need help and we need it now.
Ma'am, you have every right to be upset, and you are absolutely correct. Up until this point, excuse me, sir, let me finish this thought and I'll let you speak. We did not have the amount of staffing on board that we needed to. This was acknowledged within the last 90 days. And since then, I've been very, very impressed at the other parts of FEMA that have stood up to help deploy assets to the claims office to help fix what hasn't been done the way it was intended to be. There is many claims where I admit now, we are past our statutory timelines. And once we realize that, we have a lot of people helping us make it right. I ask you to please give us another chance. Come to the claims office and talk directly with the navigator. If you don't have the experience that you feel you need to, we have an advocate's office. Talk to the advocate's office. I'm also willing to share my contact information. And those of you that have sent me information know that I will make every effort to get you the answers or find you the answers. It has been very challenging, but we now have at least 100 new staff between deployed people coming in, contractors coming in, and all of those are to bridge until we get permanent people in place. This week alone, we have 2 hiring fairs, and we're going to keep having hiring fairs until we have enough permanent staff. That's why we brought in additional people. So thank you, ma'am.
We have a question in the, is it
Gilbert and Nancy Quintana.
Gilbert and Nancy Quintana are they have a question?
Yes. Yes, we have a question regarding our flood insurance claim. We submitted it June 1st, 2023, and we got a letter of acknowledgement on about December 12th of 2023. But in that letter, they had some clauses that...
So there's Nancy and Gilbert Quintana online. For those of you that can't hear, he has a question about their flood insurance that was submitted.
Yes.
23.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay, so we got a letter of acknowledgement on December 12th, around there, 2023, but it had some strong stipulations in there. It had, first of all, we applied for 2 properties for flood insurance, and they only gave it to 1, and they weren't specific on the one they gave it to. And it was only for 1 year, and they're supposed to be for a 5-year award. But we only got it for 1 year, but it had a big disclaimer on there that we could not hold FEMA liable for past, present, or future type of initiatives. And we have other damages as well. So we consulted with an attorney, and they said this thing would be excluding you. Why does FEMA promise people these insurances? They promise the politicians these services, but when it comes down to delivering these services for the people that need them, they don't provide it. We're very frustrated. I mean, the spring runoff will be here soon, and if we don't have any flood protection on these properties, what are we going to do? I mean, that's a simple little thing to do something like that, and it's not even happening.
Thank you, Gilbert. There's 3 things I'm going to address, but essentially he was asking about why the flood insurance policy that they received in 2023 was 1 year. We initially started issuing 1-year policies, and we're working with the NFIP program to figure out how to transition it to multi-year policies, because we knew we were going to have lasting impacts for several years. So if you did receive a 1-year policy, know that it will be converted to a 5-year policy. It will be 5 years, sir. Please come forth. It will be 5 years. We'll make sure to make that happen. Another thing that Gilbert and Nancy asked about was impacts that are going to be coming forth in future years. And that is compensable. I mentioned at the beginning of this program that if you have a notice of loss associated with a fire, that's 1 claim. If there's losses that come forth in the future, you can come forth and submit a new notice of loss for losses associated with events that have not occurred yet. The last thing that I'm going to mention is that we do have a section of the program tonight where we are specifically going to talk about the NFIP flood insurance. So if anyone has any additional questions about flood insurance, I ask you to wait until we get through the program so that we have the opportunity for that presenter to talk about the flood insurance program.
Well, I had the follow-up question. One of my questions wasn't answered. Why
Hold on, sir.
why was the disclaimer put in on the letter of acknowledgement saying that we wouldn't have any recourse for past, present, or future type of actions against FEMA for losses?
That you've given out. But out of the 4 billion, that's less than 10%. I have to ask the question, where is it all going? How many meetings do you have to have before you start setting up that?
Yeah, that's all my question.
We've been waiting for almost 3 years. Our water is contaminated. You drink that water, you can die. This is what our children are growing up in. And I don't understand why you're meeting with lawyers and paying that money and having all these meetings when all you have to do is send out the checks. That's it. That's all you have to do. And we're done. But honestly, I'm looking at some of the stuff that you guys have spent some money on. And there are third-party people who have a vested interest in prolonging this as long as possible so that they can get as much money as they want.
Exactly.
How long is it going to take? We should have FEMA has $4 billion. $4 billion. Absolutely. And have you seen any of it? Have we seen people who are driving up and down the road getting paid to kind of look around?
You know, we guys we're really curious.
I have a few things, but you know, I don't think you guys understand what we're going through. There's really not any connection here. My husband was treated better after 9/11. And we all know what kind of health
A motel here in Las Vegas because they have too many animals. He was in his Sapio firefighter outfit. Didn't have an ID because they won't be given it because they don't want to spend the money. But they threw a firefighter who is fighting this fire out of a motel in Las Vegas. Now, is anybody proud of that? Threw him out because there was more people to spend more money. Now that's pretty damn sad when you throw a firefighter out on the street with a wife and 5 animals to sleep in a car.
Oh, that opened my house with.
Pretty damn sad. Pretty damn sad.
My point being is that there are people who are gaining from our misery. All your paychecks come from us. And I want to know what you're going to do about it and do about it tomorrow, today. We don't have months to wait. They have floods that are coming closer and closer to the foundation of their second house because the first one burned.
2 weeks after we flood our home.
Nothing.
2 weeks.
Nothing.
2 weeks.
So I understand you've got all these new things that you're starting. Okay. You know what? We've been hearing that for 3 years. And we haven't necessarily heard it from you, but we've heard it over and over and over again. And the time to talk about it is done. You need to get off your asses and get busy.
I do want to point out to everyone that the way that the law is written, we can only give compensation directly to claimants.
We are claimants.
We cannot pay third parties. We cannot pay attorneys. And we are starting to speed up that process. And I completely agree it has taken too long. If anybody's worked for the federal government before, you know that the most frustrated people are the ones on the inside trying to make a difference. Additionally,
People getting the money as a contractor.
Yes.
We're
We can only take
it's
claims.
all based on assets. It's like the only thing you care about is what assets were lost. If we heard at one point that you were gonna demand that we show you that we were gonna sell our trees. Therefore, you would pay for those trees. And our property is a recreational property. It's not a logging company. It's not anything. But that doesn't seem to phase you guys. The only thing you care about is what thing that you can put money into, what asset can you replace? You can't replace our lives, but you seem okay with that. You know, I don't know how much longer I have to live, but this is a misery to live through. I was set up and ready for retirement.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. First off, I'm not a third-party representative. I'm a lawyer. I came to this school through high school. I went through 4 years of undergrad that I paid for. I went through 3 years of law school and 2 years getting an LLM. So the fact that you don't treat us as lawyers, you treat us as these third parties is really frustrating. These people hired lawyers, who must not do their job, and we're trying to work together to make that happen. Here's my question. It's been really fair. And Jennifer, I don't envy you. I know what you have to be going through to be the claims process. It's a tough job. But right now, where we stand, every single one of my clients' claims except two have missed 180 days. What is the plan to maybe hire a third-party company that knows how to run claims processes to do this right now that could come in and do it? Because when you train 100 new employees, it's gonna, and we're out of time, and my client's biggest fear right now is if we don't get money now, this month and next month, they're gonna miss the spring building season, they're gonna miss the summer building season, and now they're gonna be another, they're gonna be another year behind before they can put a home. And what are you talking about maybe hiring that function out? Because an example is one of your claims reviewers left, Doug Pardon. He had a bunch of our claims, and the way I learned that he left is his emails bounced. Not because anybody from FEMA said, hey, we have a problem. So are you considering outsourcing at this point?
Thank you, Antonia. I know that it's taken a long time, and I'm not going to deny that it's taken longer than we would want it to take. And we have considered all the different options on how we can fix this as quickly as we can. I know that we have a meeting coming up with your law firm, ma'am, where we are going to go through every single one of those claims that you've submitted to the claims office to ensure that you know what we need from you and we understand what you need from us. That's a new initiative. I wish it would have happened sooner, but all we can do from this point forward is keep that constant open communication going. We do have some claims reviewers who have left the program, and we have procedures in place to get those inventory of their emails, their documents, and reassign them to other claims reviewers. So as far as your reference to that, we are handling that as well. And we want to make sure that we get the assistance to the community as quickly as we can. We all have the same goal. We're all trying our best. I can't speak to why it hasn't happened before now, but I can say that now, moving forward, we want to have an open dialogue with the attorneys.
Can you tell us that?
I wish I could believe what you just said, but I do not.
We
I'm
will.
sorry.
We
This
are
is
ready
bullshit.
to process all of the claims that come forth to the office. The reason we have not given out 4 billion is because we've only received requests for 556 million.
I don't believe that at
In
all.
order to give out the
I
compensation,
don't believe that
we
one
need people to
bit.
come forth and request the compensation. It's waiting. It's there. It's waiting. As soon as people come, they ask for it. We will process the claim. Absolutely. And we have paid 383 of that 556. I encourage you to also tell people to come forward and submit, and we will work them as quickly as we can.
Jennifer,
I don't believe that.
let's get somebody else to talk. We've already heard, and let's give somebody else a chance to say something. Well, what actually with? And that very specific question about towards it and getting an organization that knows what they're doing. You sidestep the whole damn question like you've done for the last month, you've done month. Would you please answer Antonia's question? Have you considered getting professional people that know what the hell they're doing to help you, or at least turn it over to them? God knows when a tractor breaks down on my end of the operation, I don't waste time and days to whooping around thinking I can fix it. I call the tech people at John Deere and say, hey guys, what's going on here? Why don't you do that? But answer her question. Will you consider getting somebody to help you? Because that was her question, and at my hearing faded, but I heard her question pretty clear.
No, thank you, sir, and I appreciate that. Because since the beginning of this program, we've talked about how we're going to be transparent and share our processes, share the numbers, and
That is a bunch of bullshit. I'm sorry.
And I can tell you that we are considering all options on how to make the program go faster and quicker to get the compensation out.
That's a bunch of.
I am going to hand it over to our next presenter because there's been a specific request to let somebody else speak, and we're going to be here for your questions. So with that, I will hand it over to Ali Ryan.
Thanks, Jen. All right, so we're going to talk about how we are coordinating efforts at the state level with all of our federal, local, and state partners. So that way we're making sure we're maximizing the resources that are on the ground. So we're not talking about claims office resources. We're talking about other resources that are available, whether it's through a federal program or through a state program or even through some of our other private nonprofits that we have going on. The way we are coordinating all of this is through what we call the lines of effort for recovery. So we're identifying key issues that are in the community and assigning resources to each of those key problems that are going on. This is to make sure that we're lessening the burden on you. And remember, guys, I know that a lot of you are here with the focus of the claims office, but what we're talking about is other things other than what the claims office can pay for, okay? So when we start talking about tonight, we're focusing on agricultural flood insurance. Again, flood insurance can be covered on the claims office, but we do have a couple other resources that we have going on. We want you guys to know that these losses for your fencing, for your years of loss of crop, for livestock, they're all costs that you can get compensated for. And there are resources to help you navigate that. So one of the big resources that we talked about earlier was the disaster case managers. They are here. I do apologize, sir. I don't know what happened, but we would love to talk with you after line so we can figure out how we can make sure that communication is better with you. But we have some other folks. Jonas, I don't know if you guys want to come up to the table or not. I know. Yeah, you can come up now. So tonight we've got yeah. Tonight we have Jonas and Jolene Gray from Farm Service through the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And then we also have Kevin Badia from New Mexico Department of Agriculture. So I'm going to turn it over to Ashley. We're going to talk about a couple of those resources. And we want you guys to know that tonight and everything that's going on tonight is your choice. No one is here to force you into a specific resource. No one is here to make you make a specific decision. This is all of your choice. And I want you to know that we are here as a state. We're here to help and support you through whichever choice you choose to make. So
How are you going to help us replace our structures that we?
I work for Ali at the New Mexico Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. For the topic for this evening, we've heard a lot of feedback that there needs to be more transparency about resources for agricultural producers, folks who lost their fences, have lost their crops for multiple years and expect to continue to lose their crops, who need help accessing resources about how to move forward. And so this evening, we're really excited to have the Farm Service Agency at the table We've seen a lot of progress through U.S. Department of Agriculture in developing a consolidated resource specifically for folks impacted by the Hermit Peak Calf Canyon fire. So you'll be hearing about those resources and how you can access them. The New Mexico Department of Agriculture also has resources, primarily educational, but they are coordinating our interagency partners. Our goal is, at the state level to try and reduce the burden on folks so that you don't have to try and get your PhD in federal programs. We know some of that has already happened already, but just to amplify Ali's point, the goal of our team, the case managers in the room, is to make it so that there's somebody else who can navigate that for you and help you through the process. So again, we're really, if you want to come talk to us, we're happy to talk about specific cases and any needs that you might have. And then, to round it out, we also know that the lion's share of payments for folks who have lost their livestock and resources is the claims office. And so Don will be talking about the specific documents that you need to submit to go through that process. One last
You guys are so full of bullshit. Don't give me that crap.
Once folks receive funding, you need help, finding a contractor. And some of you might already know who's going to do that work on your property. But something that we're working on at the state level is creating events to connect you to local contractors.
Oh, good grief. You guys are so full of bullshit. I can't believe it. What you're saying is nothing that helps us.
We also know that there's federal work that's happening across all of the agencies. We know they want to subcontract locally. And so one of our goals is to improve that process of getting folks the resources they need if they are a contractor to get licensed. And then if you are a resident who is in the process of rebuilding, we want to make sure that there's a space for folks to connect to those local contractors so that they can get work done. So over the course of the next couple months, we're excited that our partners at USDA just announced to us today, actually, that on February 24th, they are going to be hosting the first Contractor Connect. That's going to be focused more on U.S. Forest Service contracting processes. And if you have questions about that, certainly encourage you to connect to our partners from FSA in the room, but I also see that we've got folks from NRCS in the back as well. So would encourage you to connect with them. And then the State Disaster Case Management Program will also be hosting a Contractor Connect. We're expecting it to be on March 30th, but we'll be messaging that out on flyers via our Recover New Mexico newsletter. So we want you to know that we're here through the full process of, we know that once you get the money, making sure that there are resources to connect to local contractors, that's a really important part of the process too. So all that to say, I know that there's going to be questions at the end. So I want to make sure we give a chance for our presenters to speak. So I'll kick it over to Jonas to brief on the Farm Service Agency program.
Hi. Like I said, thank you very much. Good evening, folks. My name is Jonas Moya. I'm the State Executive Director for the Farm Service Agency. I got a few little things to just announce today. The one thing is, the Farm Service Agency, we've been in your community for generations already. So a lot of you producers that are familiar with this, let's continue that relationship. Let's continue to have you come in, make sure that your farm records are up to date, make sure that whatever livestock you are losing, you're making sure that our office is notified of those losses. But also too, with all this disasters and the continuous flooding that's going on, let's make sure that any other producers that have not yet built that relationship with the Farm Service Agency come into our office and let's start building that relationship, because not only are we going to continue to help you with this disaster here, but the Farm Service Agency is a resource that can be used for years to come to continue to make sure that your farming and ranching operation is successful. Because we all know that it's not easy. It's not easy. Prices on inputs keep going higher, and the prices that we're getting on our crops and our livestock, kind of stay the same. So let's continue to work through this together. I have a bag full of resource documents that I'm going to place here on this table, and I'm going to stick around a little bit after this meeting for to build any questions. But let's continue to build that relationship. And if you have any questions, I'll be here also. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay, 2 questions.
Yes.
1, the NRCS already went into our property. They said for us to go to the FEMA's office and talk to them about getting our money. Okay, so we go over there, they find out we have an attorney. Oh, we can't talk to you. So we get turned away. So what happens to that money? Do we ever get it? It's very bad because we're having to pay out of pocket. Our savings is dropping bad. The other thing is some of those contractors that you guys are recommending, who is really checking up on them? I know for a fact that some of our friends that even got the FEMA home, they hired this contractor that's a joke. He failed numerous violations on setting up the foundation and everything. You know, these people were homeless. They lost everything. They're already being traumatized. You know, they feel like they're being, and excuse the word, they've been raped over and over and over again, and they continue to have to wait because FEMA says, we have to go with this contractor. Why? If this guy is a screw up, get somebody else that can do the damn job and do it right.
Absolutely. Well, I definitely hear you. And any concerns with NRCS, that is a separate agency, but I'm always willing to take that information and connect those concerns with my counterparts at NRCS. And you know, to speak towards some of the ill intent that's going on there, that's not right for communities like this that are definitely trying to rebuild after such a horrific disaster. So I hear you loud and clear on that, man. Okay, sir. Oh, you could I say something? No.
I just want to address her question really quickly. We absolutely share your concern about contractor fraud, and I think that brings up a great point that I forgot, so thank you for highlighting that need. We want to identify contractor fraud as quickly as possible. Our case managers have been trained in reporting up to the complaint hotline. We are working with the regulations and licensing department so that if contractors are on folks' property and not doing what they're supposed to be doing, that gets reported and identified as quickly as possible to the regulations and licensing department. They are ramping up their capacity to address those needs because the last thing that we want is for somebody to get funding and to then go through that experience with a contractor. So thank you for bringing up that issue.
They're still frozen with that contractor. And
we know,
if you can't do that job, get somebody else that can.
And I know that we're working on specific cases, so we'll certainly follow up with the rest of the meeting to discuss that issue.
What is the status of getting an independent claims director in the state of New Mexico?
I'm gonna answer one more piece to her question real quick. I do apologize, sir. So the other thing that we're working on for the contractor fair is creating checklists for everyone. So like if an individual comes in and if they're going through the same issues that you're talking about, because I do know specifically the family you're referring to, that family would have a checklist of things to be looking for to make sure that if they're running into issues, they know exactly what is right and what is wrong. Because I will tell you right now, I own a home. If unfortunately I lost my home tomorrow, I would have no idea where to start. And I don't want to put that burden on you guys. So we're creating checklists, we're creating messaging and avenues to make this easier for you, especially for someone, because many of you guys have generational homes. You may have never have even built the home that you originally have. And so therefore you have no idea where to start in order to pick up those pieces. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible and try to connect. What Ashley also mentioned about RLD is building up that capacity. So for the case that you're talking about, RLD only had one person in this area who's covering both Mora and San Miguel County. Rightfully so, because there weren't a lot of houses being built at that time. That capacity that situation has since changed. So therefore we're trying to get them funding so that way they can have more than one person here, and specifically more than one person that stays here in these areas. So that way they are just constantly rotating in and out to properties and not having to come up one day out of the week and visit all the homes if they need to. We have someone who is solely dedicated to Mora and San Miguel.
We know there are more questions, but being mindful of time, there will be time for more questions at the end, so we'll certainly come back to you. But I think want to make sure that Kevin has a chance to present from New Mexico Department of Agriculture.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Can't imagine what you all are going through, but would like to let you know that the New Mexico Department of Agriculture and New Mexico State University is here to help mostly with information, pamphlets, different types of educational materials. We're a coordinating agency. We work with Jonas and the HSEM, and we'd like to help in any way we can. If there's anything that you'd like to ask, please see me after the meeting. I'll be glad to meet with you, share any information that I can with you. And if I can't answer your question, I can definitely try to connect you with someone that can answer your question in regards to agricultural production and livestock needs.
I know that we'll have a chance for questions at the end. We want to make sure we round out the agriculture portion of the presentation. So one last one to round us out is Don Seiler from the claims office to brief on the process of getting compensated for livestock losses.
Thank you. My name is Don Seiler, and I am the branch chief over the 3 field offices. So I take our job very seriously. I understand the significance of agriculture within the Mora area, the breadbasket of New Mexico. So we know the livestock, the crops issues are very important, and we want to let you know that we are here to support you, whatever your needs are, whether they be livestock, whether they be feed, whether they be crops, subsistence issues, feed for your cattle, replacement of your cattle. We know there's going to be cascading events for years due to the overflow of the pastures and the way the crops have changed, the sepia issues. So we're akin to that. I just wanted to briefly talk about what's going to be needed when you come to us, because again, we have to have documentation for us to proceed. I know everybody would like for us to just be able to give out money with nothing, but we are held accountable for that. So just, some of the livestock losses, we're looking for federal tax records, IRS Schedule F, livestock assessment from the county assessor, New Mexico Livestock Board shipping certificates, sale barn, livestock commission reports, receipts, brand transfers, livestock bill of sale, brand change of address form, just things that are going to help document what the losses are. Inventory of lost livestock, including the quantity, the type, the breed, the purpose of the animal. Again, it's important we understand where we can document our payments, our compensation. For livestock replacement, livestock ownership documentation will provide, the values. We can get to those values of these livestock items. They are commodity items. You can get to those prices, and there's no incentive us for not providing the maximum compensation for any lost livestock. If you need to replace livestock, if you're having issues with any kind of reproduction, we're there. We want to make sure that you know that we're there and we'll consider anything. So a lot of instances where you've been forced to sell, or you don't have the fencing, you don't have the grass anymore, you lost the lease, things like that are compensable. But just help us with the documentation bringing forward, because we do want to provide the maximum compensation possible.
Any studies of the environment around his environment? Any studies that have been published on that?
The EPA has been clear. I don't think that they've officially published any studies. We are working with a couple of different analytics teams to come out and they're wrapping up actually a full study. That publishment is supposed to be done in April timeframe is what we've been told. So those are folks that are coming out. They are testing the water, they're testing the soil, they're looking at all of those items, but also looking at the watershed and making sure that we're addressing the watershed from top to bottom. So that publication is supposed to be done in April. Yes, ma'am.
Can we tie that to our FEMA claim?
Yes, ma'am.
So anything that the EPA says will go over there. FEMA will accept that as a claim.
We will accept all documentation you bring forth, so long as the statute allows us to compensate you for those losses. We're going to do that.
Now, because our water has arsenic in it from the fires specifically, and also other things that is in there that's not real well. So when we plant gardens and things, that's going to come up in those plants, I'm assuming. So if we eat those from our own gardens, we see a problem. So yeah, we tested our water.
I'm not a soil expert, but I do know if there is things that you can do to your property to remedy what you're describing, we will compensate that. We do have one more presenter, and then we're going to go back to Q&A. So those of you that have your hands up know that we just have one more presenter, and then we'll get back. And I think I want to address the question that was brought up before. Shauna, over to you.
Thank you. I will not take up much of your time. I know there's lots of questions on the floor.
Can't hear you, can't hear you.
My name is Shauna Blint. My name is, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. My name is Shauna Blanchard Mbanga. I'm with the claims office. I wanted to take just a very few minutes to talk to you about flood insurance. If you have not applied for flood insurance with the claims office, please do so. It is at no cost to you. You have heard lots of questions about flood insurance tonight. You can have flood insurance through the claims office at no cost for up to 5 years. If you have purchased private insurance after the fire, you can be reimbursed for that. If that policy was 1 year, great, we'll reimburse it. Then you'll get an extra 4 years through NFIP, through our flood insurance program. If you purchase 2 years of private insurance, then we'll pay for another 3 to bring you up to 5. This is at no cost to you. You can get this before you finalize all of your claims. You can come in and submit a notice of loss. It can be paid immediately. You will get an annual renewal notice from the NFIP program. You will get a letter of determination from our office, which states the 5 years of coverage. And or if you had a private policy, we'll do the math. It will come up to 5 years total. They will cover structures. They will cover property loss. I am not the expert to tell you what is a structure and what is not. But there are folks at the NFIP program who can answer that for you. So if you are interested in flood insurance, which again is at no cost to you, fill out an NOL in the hallway, come to one of our offices, talk to one of our navigators. We will get your information. We will get you all set up for the flood insurance. Plain and simple. That's all for me. Yes, sir.
You speak of flood insurance. What about fire insurance? Because the fires that are going to come in the next 2 years are probably going to be just devastating. That's what we saw. On our side of the mountain, and to see the example, there was a lot of weak season that took place. In the area that didn't get burnt to the strip, rocks blew up and everything. We grew grass this year. The fire danger up there is unbelievable right now. So my question is, flood insurance? Yes, but what about fire insurance? Are you going to help us live in these rural areas with low-rated fire departments? I mean, they do the best they can, but fire insurance for us is top-rated. What are you going to do there?
We are looking into that. Because it is such a vast category of what the compensation can be used for, we have not made a final determination on your exact question, but we are looking into it. We are aware of it, and I encourage you to come forth. We have navigators and disaster case managers waiting outside right now. The first step in the process is just to put your hand up, submit a notice of loss, and we are going to do our best to compensate everyone to the maximum amount we can within the bounds of the law.
Got a question?
No, somebody else talk.
About all the new navigators? All the new navigators? What training do they have? What training do they have?
You can wait.
You are making, that's your computer. You're making me very nervous. You knock it down.
Okay.
Your computer.
So I don't know how many of you were at the last town hall, so I'm just going to kind of give you the whole context and bear with me as I kind of back up to where we are now. So I'm going to start off with traditional FEMA operates under the Stafford Act. Usually after a disaster, there's a certain point in time where the disaster response transitions from the response to the disaster to long-term recovery. We are at that point now with the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon event. So the Stafford Act response is migrating to a long-term recovery office under Region 6, which covers New Mexico, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma. Because we have a brand new program, as in the claims office, we put a lot of thought and effort as to how we can complement those two programs to ensure that the compensation is used not just to compensate the impacted parties, but also governments can submit claims. So in the past, under Stafford Act, there's certain requirements for the grants. And now we have the opportunity for, if those grants cannot be covered by Stafford Act, we can assess them under the claims office. So the claims office is migrating to Region 6, and in Region 6, they are going to be hiring a director of operations to oversee both the long-term recovery and the operations of the claims office. That job posting will be coming out shortly, and if you are interested or know of anybody that's interested, I encourage you to apply. Does that answer your question, sir? Nobody has been placed yet. That's correct. The job announcement is coming out within the next. It hasn't been posted yet. Imminent. I'm going to go out on a limb and say within the next month, because there's different things that have to happen in order for the job description and the determination to be made. But it will be posted on USA Jobs, and anybody that's interested is encouraged to apply for that job, and it has not been filled.
Does not having a director hold up the cost of the education?
No, sir.
The director for a whole, that whole region you were just talking about?
That director of operations is going to be specifically for New Mexico long-term recovery operations, of which there will be a branch in there that is the claims office operations. So other long-term recovery operations in other states also have a long-term recovery office, but they don't have the claims office branch, which can come in to see if we can fund things that the Stafford Act cannot. Go ahead, Paul.
Thanks for doing your job. I've worked with you, your people who are administrative. I have a really quick question.
Yes, sir.
Can you speak a little louder, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. How many FEMA staff are there currently?
His question is, how many FEMA staff are there currently? Full-time, 98. Full-time, 98.
And part-time?
No, we don't have part-time.
We don't have part-time, but we do have contracted staff, which is not included in that 98. I believe that's up to. Contractors are up to 80. So 98 plus the 80. Plus we have deployed members coming in for different amounts of time. Actually, one of them standing right behind you right now. And they are here to help fill the gap until we get permanent FEMA staff in place for the claims office. No, those are separate. So those are the deployed members I talked about that are just coming in on a short-term basis until we can get permanent members hired and through the federal hiring process, which takes several months.
Are there operational costs and salaries? Are the operational and salary costs from FEMA being taken out of full-time on you?
It is. And we are doing our best to keep it within the regular oversight level of other programs that are administered that have similar budgets.
Follow-up question. What is the total amount of expenses that FEMA expenses coming out of it? That might take a day.
Yeah, I think we'll have to take that back and get you that information, Paul, because I don't have that off the top of my head yet. Of course, no, thank you.
I have a follow-up question. What are the differences? What job roles are employees filling and what job roles are contractors filling?
The contractors that we have are primarily filling the role of claims reviewers. So a lot of the FEMA staff is focused on the operational aspect of navigation. And then we also have, for lack of a better term, headquarters type roles where they develop the policy, they implement it, they have the oversight. So we have some mission support, full-time government, and then we have some operations, full-time government. But the majority of the contract staff is the claims reviewers.
What experience do they have? I mean, what training do they have?
When we were first standing up the program, we brought on people that had experience processing insurance claims. The reason we brought them on is because we needed that level of subject matter expertise to tell us what kind of documentation requirements should we have for people to submit in order to receive their compensation and for us to do our diligence to prevent fraud. And we have to make sure that we adhere by the law so that the audits go through clean. When we brought on the insurance specialists, because of their experience, they came forth and said, we need this document, this document, this document, this document. So we were asking people for those documents. And now we've streamlined that process to those documentation checklists to say, we are not, because we're not an insurance company, we don't need all of these, we need one. The main things that we struggle with to get is two things. When somebody submits, they have to prove their identity. So identity verification and then address verification. We spend a lot of time making sure that we have the identity verified and the address verified in order to avoid fraudulent claims being paid out. So does that answer your question now? You're welcome.
Thank you all for what you're doing. And I, for one, support you. Because if you're not here, guess where what happens? So we need to be kind with each other. And let's all remember that. It's not shit or hell. Everybody needs to respect you. Yeah. And bottom line, I just have a nuts and bolts question. And everybody's trying to run your job, and I know you have a tough job. And everybody that suffered also has to be considered. But I went through the NRCS process, and I didn't hire an attorney, and I figured I could represent my interests based on fact. And so I did get the assessment, and as part of the assessment, the white elephant in the room, I think for all of us, is tree loss. Tree loss. And that needs to be listened to because the majority of the loss was trees. And so I went through, did the assessment, turned it in, and got a partial payment. Thank God for that, because I'm believing in the system. But we need to provide input into that system. And FEMA needs to listen, or you guys, the claims office, needs to listen and make your decision based on factual evidence. Facts. Okay, I'll give you some facts now. Okay, the NRCS assessment, okay, let's start with the final rule indicated that based on burden severity, it would be anywhere between for moderate, 4,500, for severe, 9,000 or more. Okay, in my case, my farm got blowed out completely. Everything is toast, and it was rated as high or severe. Okay, as a statistic or a payment, the NRCS said that for residency treatment, they pay $3,835 an acre. Okay. Then, and I understand that the final rules indicates that for treatment processes or like say herbaceous tree or herbaceous weed treatment or 3-inch shrub establishment, the herbaceous tree weed treatment was $736 an acre. Okay, and tree and shrub establishment was $1,153 an acre. So in doing the math, it's $5,724 an acre. Now, within those three categories, they didn't pay for the full acreage. They just paid, like, say, for 3 and shrub establishments, they paid for 10 acres. And knowing that what we did was got, well over 100 acres of toast. So that adds to 5,724 an acre. So what happens to the rest if it was considered severe? And we need, and then when I brought the question to the navigator, she said, well, that you have to take that up with NRCS. So I talked to NRCS and they washed their hands away from it and they said, no, what we did was what we felt was right. But there was, at which point the FEMA, the claims office, get back or make that right. And that's my question is just make it, if it's a severe burn and you had 200 acres of severe, then you should be paid 9,000 acres regardless of what it is. So please be aware that that's a tremendous concern. That's all I have. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
We have questions in the chat. Can we ask some questions from the chat?
There's questions in the chat from those online, so we're gonna take one of those next.
How many arborists?
One question is how many arborists?
How many arborists have we hired?
Yeah, I'm thinking through the question because the question is how many arborists have we hired? So we haven't just hired arborists. We've hired all different kinds of subject matter experts, one of which is arborists. We recently brought on 20 additional subject matter experts to help address the backlog of subject matter expert reports that need to be written. So I don't have the breakout as far as how many are arborists, how many are foresters, but do know that we have ramped up in the number of subject matter experts that we had to address those specific claims.
Hey, Jennifer, I believe this gentleman might have had an ag question early on as well. I have a question. Yeah.
How about the hay crops?
The hay crop?
Okay. A lot of our meadows were alfalfa, timothy, and soybean. NRCS came in and spread foxtail or what kind of weed did it spread. It is good for flooding, but it is good for fire. I walked this fall through what they planted, and it grew good for flooding. You can't find that thing together.
Yeah, I think that was one of the concerns I still brought up too earlier about fire hazards and what that's going to cause in the future, especially with how thick that brush is going to be coming down.
What's it going to do for our meadows? What's it going to find?
Exactly. Well, those are good comments. I appreciate the perspective on that as well. And I'm just encouraging you to continue to come into the Farm Service Agency as well as dealing with the No, we won't be able to do that. Of course not. Yeah. But those are definitely good processes.
Actually, this woman here's her hand up. And mine's not exhausted yet, so I can have it.
Just another question from the chat. How can we get FEMA to continue rental assistance? So I know that we at the state have, requested that FEMA extend, they did extend the CTHA, the Continued Temporary Housing Assistance Program. I believe that did end it ends on March 1st. So it is currently still open. I know that for us, if folks are in the disaster case management program and are using that program, that gives us the data that we need to work with our partners at FEMA to request additional extensions. So if folks are aware of a need for rental assistance, if you can please speak to one of us or one of the case managers, we can work with you. And that's where I know our partners at FEMA have really worked with us to make sure that programs are extended so that folks aren't without a home. But as Ali said, you need to know who you are to be able to give you that help.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm just gonna read and speak loudly. Are you going to pay interest on damages? I have proved from the end
Of the 180.
of the 180-day period until payment is received.
So the question is, are you gonna pay interest on damages because they've received the end of the timeline? And I probably need some additional context on that because I'm not sure exactly what the interest is associated with. So while you get back to that person, I'm going to take a question from the audience.
Woman in yellow's had her hand up.
Women in yellow, yes, ma'am.
When you were talking about the 8 contractors that you have hired and that most of them are yours, you said you got them mostly from people who have experience in insurance claims. And insurance adjuster's job is to pay out the lease there. Have you retrained for?
Are we gonna pay interest on damages accrued?
Accrued, I accrued. Oh, from the end of the 180-day period.
Are they gonna pay interest on damages after the 100?
70%. It's being made whole.
So the question was, have we retrained the claims reviewers that we hired because they came from an insurance background? And the answer is yes, absolutely. We have many a training where we have had to remind them that this is not an insurance company and we have the inverse. Or as opposed to paying out the least amount, we are seeking to pay out the maximum amount. And that's why we implemented these checklists to make it clear to the public, the navigators, the claims reviewers, and the authorizing officials that that is the minimum amount of documentation we need for that exact reason. I also wanted to point out that we hired those claims reviewers initially at the onset of the program to help get our processes underway. Now that we're surging up, we're not necessarily bringing in just people with that background. We're bringing in people to help us process the claims because we have the process established now.
Hello, I have a Stafford Ash question.
I want to be philosophical for just a second. I'll try and make it quick. But what I saw with the initial igniting of the fires of Las Despensas of Cap Canyon was that policy was put ahead of reality. What I've seen throughout the entire process in the claims office, policy has been put ahead of reality. There's a philosophical problem there. And the answer to it is right here. Because neither FEMA, I think maybe you are now, I'm hopeful, but I'm an optimist. Neither FEMA nor U.S. Forest Service listened to these voices. We can help you if you will allow us to be a partner in the process. I also would like to point out that actually a solution to all of this was available at the very beginning of the claims office. And it was offered to you through channels. This is not an insurance claim. This is not Stafford Act. This is more aligned with what happens when there is a court judgment for payment for damages done because of gross negligence. Okay. In most cases, I've researched the PG&E out in California. In most cases, a retired judge is put in charge of the process. And I'm going to have to pull some numbers out of my head a little bit. But PG&E, who distributed $13 billion, it was a company that had to go bankrupt despite that, despite the complications of having to also distribute what funds were available equitably. It was done, I believe, $13 billion. It was headed by a retired judge. I think, if I remember right, it took a year and a half. The whole process. I think where we are right now is where we are. We can't change the fact that it's gone too far. We're going to have to rely on you to make this as efficient as possible. And there needs to be a turnaround. Forget putting policy ahead of reality. This is your reality. Right here. So the policy, I was horrified to see that the policies of risk management were applied to this, which I believe somebody with insurance, that applies to insurance, correct? As part of a process of paying as little as possible. I'm not happy with their checklists. I think it's rather onerous. And what I've seen is somebody pointed out earlier that we, as the claimants, as people who've been damaged, have to provide a great deal of information. We have to dot every I and cross every T. But FEMA, the claims office, and I'm sorry you're catching these people, but the claims office has not been conscientious in the meeting their end of the bargain, and that needs to change. And that's all I'm gonna. Like Forrest Gump says, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Pam. Okay.
Just for context, we lost our home, my mother lost her home, and my 98-year-old grandmother lost her. Our claim form is being in since December of 22. Why is it that you're treating those of us that are represented by attorneys differently? You yourself have acknowledged that your internal procedure treat those differently that are represented by attorneys. That's question number one. And how are you going to reassure us that you are that you're not going to continue to violate your own rules and regulations that you develop based on the fact that you're already doing that? You're well beyond the 180 days on my 98-year-old grandmother's claim. It's real simple. All it is a house. It's a double-wide mobile home. There's no property. There's no tree. Yet you guys did exactly what you wanted.
Thank you, Toby. There's a few things I'm going to say on that before we go to the next question. So we process all claims with the same procedure, regardless if you have an attorney or not. There's a same process. The claims reviewer goes through the same process that the navigator goes through. The navigator works with the claimant to gather the documentation and relay the information they need. The attorney works with the claimant to relay what documentation is needed. So in theory, the attorney is acting as the navigator for the claimant. Both processes are the same. The difference is that when you have an attorney, the claims reviewer relays to the attorney what we need to move your claim forward. And I admit we're getting better at opening up that communication with the attorneys on a regular basis so the attorney knows what they need to ask the claimant for, and we know what we're on the hook for as far as processing.
For 180 days, our attorneys haven't heard anything from you guys.
Understood. They
one-way street.
Yes, sir. And we do have that monthly meeting that we started in January, where every attorney that has submitted a claim on behalf of a claimant is invited to attend that attorney meeting, and they can also request a one-on-one for us to go through every single one of their claims with them so that they know what they're on the hook to ask the claimant for, and also they can keep us accountable for moving the claim forward.
You guys have the late fees for on your end? I mean, if you're late getting back to us after the 100 days, can we charge you a late fee?
If it is compensable, the way the statute is written,
I don't, you don't have to answer that. I don't know.
we encourage everyone to submit for any losses that they feel they may qualify for, and we're going to do our best to give everyone the maximum amount of compensation allowable under the law.
What about the 100 days? That's what she's asking.
That is why we're doing the surge effort for our staffing, where we're hiring more permanent personnel. We're deploying in people because we have so many claims that were acknowledged 180 days ago. We acknowledged a whole lot of claims. Now we're at the point where we need to process them, and so we're taking active measures to reduce that backlog.
Follow-up comment, it's not up to our attorney. The ball is in your court. The 180 days is up to you.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't be them having to come to you. You've got the 180 days to act, and if you haven't done it. My grandmother's has been expired since December 18th.
So how do you make that right on this claim? You break out 180 and put 250 on it, and put your initials that it's okay?
And move on to the next one?
Or get it done, or pay him. Hey,
All of those answers are correct. We're doing all of those things.
But if you're gonna hire new people, that's 5 months of waiting to get those people trained through the process until
they're ready to go.
We are working claims in order of oldest to newest, with the exception of claims that are one line. Say somebody comes forward, they have one thing, smoke damage, that's all they want to claim. We're going to establish a team to process those quickly, as well as in parallel, continue processing the claims that are in the back. And I apologize for missing that timeline. We're well aware of the work we need to do to reduce that backlog quickly.
It's not an apology. You are in. You have a
Yes,
list
ma'am.
of legal requirements. You want us to meet these legal requirements, but you are not.
That's exactly correct.
So how are you going to make it right?
There's-
You can't just say we're hiring people and we're going to hurry up. There needs to be something there. I mean,
I understand. And if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. All I can tell you is that from moving here forth, I am fully committed to make sure that we do everything in our power to make this right.
That's it, Biden said, how long ago?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Based on the comment of the gentleman in the front, what was that, statement a while ago about partial payments or what you wanted to see out.
Yes, sir.
I just want to confirm that the claims office is no longer doing partial payments, is that correct?
That is incorrect. We are still doing partial payments. The reason that we implemented partial payments in the first place is because usually when a multi-billion-dollar government program is stood up, you usually don't start operations until after policy is established. With this program, we started operations at the same time that we were writing the policy, and in an additional effort to try and get money out the door in increments, so somebody didn't have to wait to submit their whole claim before they got the payment, we started issuing partial payments. All of those different factors were different risks as far as implementing the program. We are now at a point where we're entering a new stage of the program, a new level of maturity. It was a program just getting off the ground in 2023. The legislation passed in September of 2022, and immediately staff were brought on board to start the planning process. In March was the first round of government employees that were onboarded to the program. By the end of March, we started operations. So not even 6 months from when the legislation went to Congress, got passed, got funded, and we also put out interim final rules within 45 days. At that point, we also solicited public feedback and public comments that we took into consideration for implementing the final rule. Every single one of those comments is online, and every single one of those comments was reviewed. That was implemented in August. So now we're approaching 2024. We have our program policy guide out, and that is something that took a significant amount of effort. So again, I wish we could have cranked out, it's called the PPG, Program Policy Guide, right after the law was passed. But there was some time to get that out. And now that it's out, we're focused on streamlining and making it better. And all I can tell you is that I'm committed to doing everything I can. And Kate mentioned that she knows me and she knows I'll try. And yeah, that's.
To add to what I just said, I do want to say.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Did not do it. People here did not do it. At the Washington level, you and I both worked together. The Washington level, if they had made the decision as soon as the law passed, to contract that to a retired judge to organize the system, it would be done.
And that's what we're asking for now. Is the entire state judge to be in charge of this. They know the laws, they know the history, they know the culture, they know the people, they know the language. New Mexico laws, because you're violating one by not paying non-examiners. That is a violation of New Mexico state law, and we are all New Mexicans unless I'm mistaken.
Can I ask a question? Like this one, yes. This one for for Mr. Tyler. A lot of people here are small producers, so they produce cattle for their family, they produce what they eat in the year, but they're not gonna have the sort of records to talk about. Are you accepting not being necessary for that to say, I have 5 cattle and 10 chickens, because there's no records, and I know this, I find it illegal.
Absolutely. Declarations are accepted on a wide range of issues, and that being one of them. It's almost the last resort. We want to do our due diligence to get the proper documentation, but at the end of the day, if there is none been found, declaration will suffice. Yes, we are.
And then, can I ask a question for, ma'am, I didn't get your name for flood.
Shauna.
Shauna, we have filed a bunch of notice of losses asking for flood insurance. How do we know if the policy has been put in place, or are any of the policies backdated to the date of the
It normally takes up to 30 days to process those requests. If you have a list of NOLs that you have not gotten a response on, can we get that list, please? So we could follow up on them individually and get you that response. Whatever the list is, we will go through it. Thank you.
Do I send it?
You said it, no, you sent it to the attorney box. Yeah, thank you.
And I know I addressed earlier about the kids, being, without a home and so forth, but Toby brought up a good point. His grandmother is 98 years old. There's a lot of people in here that are, their life expectancy isn't, that long. And I'm not gonna get anybody or anything, but what I'm saying is, can we expedite something for these people? I mean, I have a brother-in-law 84 years old, and I see him deteriorate every day. I have neighbors that pass away because of their exposure of everything that they've gone through. The stress, the mental behavior issues that have, come upon all of this. You guys, we talk about long-term, but we don't talk about the long-term effects that it really has on all of us. I know it's PTSD, but it is an actual problem. It is a thing that's happening, and how can we address this in an expedited manner?
So I appreciate you bringing that to our attention, and Toby, I would really love to talk with you and your family offline. But one of the things that I need from this community is and I know you guys have talked and you talked, and even tonight you have talked until you're blue in the face, but I can't help you if I don't know about it. So I've had flyers, I have had numbers. If you communicate to me, I will do everything in my power. So one of the things that we're working on from the disaster case manager, or even from the state side, I won't even say for my DCM team, even from my state side, if you communicate to the GOV's office through constituent request, that immediately comes to me. That doesn't go into La Land. It doesn't sit in someone else's inbox. If you communicate to the GOV's office, that constituent request comes to me. So if you have a problem and you can't remember my DCM phone number, contact the GOV.
Opinion about that. I sent a letter to the governor, and it was sent to Homeland Security, and we were asked what resolution would we like on each of our issues. We never heard anything from you. Nothing. I don't know where that went. It just, okay, brown file.
When did that occur?
A couple of months ago.
All right, let's chat offline, because it did not make it to my desk, and it should have made it to my desk.
It started at the top, is what they told us.
We even had a state.
Right, and you have mentioned that, sir, and I know, and I want to connect with you offline to figure out where that breakdown in communication occurred, because that should not be happening. But to get back to your, she called to ask how you were doing the other day?
How we doing? We're still in the same situation.
But, so here's one of those things, guys, is when they're calling and asking, how are you doing? That's when you get to unload. You unload everything on that person.
I did. What I've been back.
So wait.
On a disaster case manager.
I think the problem here is we're just hitting too many brick walls when it comes to I mean, Jennifer, I'm not trying to diss you. I'm not. But you've got to understand, we have all these brick walls that you guys have put up that have blocked us out. So we all kind of just block the door.
So yeah, I wanna finish your real quick, because we keep getting interrupted. So when that communication comes to my office, what we do is we immediately go to Paula's team and we work to streamline whatever issue it is. I can't tell you we are streamlining the whole notice of loss, but we're gonna start streamlining those pieces that we need. So immediate action needs is what we're gonna be working on. Public safety issues, health and emergency issues is what we're working on with policy in order to get that streamlined. So that is a process that Ben has, a couple of the folks, the leadership teams from FEMA have agreed to, is streamlining those immediate issues when they're brought up from our point of view, okay? But I have to know about it. I can advocate all day as a group, I can't advocate individually unless I know about it, okay? So that's all I'm asking is yell and scream at me until I hear everything that you gotta say, because that's what I'm hearing.
Well, do you hear what your council is?
Yeah. It's fine. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. You can ask Miss Veronica Cerna, who's dealt with me since day one. I remember when the fires are raging, she picked up the phone, she yelled and screamed, "What do you need, B? Let's get you out there. Let's get you the resources you need."
So you haven't heard anything of our case manager?
Here, hang on.
So I think for your case specifically, because your case manager was working on private property debris removal, is that correct?
No.
No, it was a different.
So.
So I.
All people that follow it was called.
Yeah.
So here's the difference with that, and again, that's being communicated to us, but it's not an individual need for you specifically. It is a public road that is a need for a lot of people. Hang on, let me finish talking. I promise I got an answer for you. That has to go through multiple different routes. When it's an individual need, I can fast track individual stuff. When we start talking about public roads, there's multiple layers to that facet. So you don't own that public road, right? Correct. So now I have to, I promise, let me get it out of hand. Okay, so whenever I go, I have to now go to the county. The county is also strapped for funding. So now on top of going to the county to ask for funding, now I gotta find funding for the county in order to get folks out there. A lot of that comes into a contracting area. So now we gotta find a contractor to go out and help fill it. So that communication has probably come up to my team and we are working on it. Unfortunately, we've all committed to it. Government does not move fast. And we would love to. The other thing behind it, hang on. The other thing behind it is we want to make sure that those roads are fixed properly, okay, guys? So that means putting mitigation efforts onto these roads so that way they stop sloughing off. So if I were to go out there, let's just say, I pay the county to go out there and put gravel. What happens in 5 days? The gravel's gone, correct? Right. So now we just wasted your taxpayer dollars to put gravel out there. What would you much rather for me to do is to pay for someone to come out and pave that road appropriately, and make sure so that way it doesn't slough off again for the next 10 years, correct?
Do you think they'll ever get the culvert straightened out?
Oh, yes, sir. So we have projects written with Stockford outside the house. Yes, ma'am, we do. I see them every day.
They say, oh, we don't have no money, people have been giving us money. Oh, we don't have any money, we're still waiting for funding from FEMA.
Okay, all right.
You don't have the employees.
Right, so we're working with the county in order to get them better staffed and better equipment and better materials, so that way we can start working. I promise you, I work all day long with the county in order to get it rocking and rolling.
What needs to be done is common sense. This snowfall that we had snow days. Bad.
Yeah.
I called the county, told them we need either a backhoe or a blade. They said, wow. What the hell am I gonna move a 8-foot snow drift? They had to go back to town, bring a big old loader, it was bigger than the transport, to get the plow out. No common sense at all.
So are you guys saying that you hit as many brick walls as we do when you're trying to deal with all these different agencies and stuff? Is it really that slow?
I won't say slow. There's rules, there's requirements, there's things that we have to go through. And so to address your point, sir, so when you guys think about the mountain, we all collectively know this. And this is a hypothetical, I don't know this. You take a mountain. Up at the top is federal land, in the middle is state land, and on the bottom is private property. We have to coordinate with all three of those entities to make sure that the work that is being completed is A, not wasting funding, B, not causing cascading impacts to the work that's being done below it, and C, making sure that we maximize funding.
You realize that that's completely contrary to we all live out here. And build our own houses, you get permits, you know, we just bypassed all that stuff with all grandfathered in at this point.
No.
And now.
I hear you. I wish
Back in the system.
I wish that we could go back to the old days, but unfortunately, when we talk about money that's coming from the federal government, it comes with attachments.
It's just, we'd like to hear a little understanding that you realize that the 209 acres of ponderosa pine forest was a recreational piece of property that hundreds of our friends came to every year on Memorial Day and enjoyed this beautiful forest.
A heck of a
Instead,
project.
we hear things like, you need to show us that you're gonna sell your tree. We're like, what? You just missed the whole recreational part of it. It's not an asset, it's just a beautiful thing. We had a park.
And I will tell you, sir, I got to see more before the fires occurred. This community, I have friends now in this community. I have folks that I come and visit very frequently. I hear you. Like, I love New Mexico. I love being able to throw parties out on that piece of property, and I want you to be able to get that back. I'm gonna tell you right now, I can't get as much as I could, which I could click my heels and wave my magic wand. I'm never gonna be able to get that back. But what I can help you is advocate for you in order to make sure that what you're talking about right now is heard. So one of the things I wanted to mention, and I know we do have a couple other questions, is the state governments, the governor, my staff, my department, we've been advocating to be a part of this process. So originally in the beginning, there wasn't a role for the state. The state didn't have a role written in legislation, but we advocated, we pushed through those doors and begged to be a part of the process, because what we know, just like what you guys know, is New Mexico is different. New Mexico has culture that goes years and years beyond even some of these other states that we have in the country. New Mexico is not understood in DC. And I will tell you, and there are people that can attest to that. I get on a phone call from someone from DC, and I'll be like, you don't get it. Get on a plane, fly your happy ass down to New Mexico. Let us take you out so you get it.
Yeah, because they think we're in Mexico. We're not Mexico.
Yeah. So, New Mexico, the state has a role, okay? And that role is advocating for you guys. I finally have that role. So through that advocation, I can tell you that is where the checklists occur. We went in and we said, you have to make this less burden right now. People. You can't ask for 100 pieces of documentation. 2 days later, you're asking for 100 more pieces. You can't. My favorite analogy is asking for the rock. You go out to find me a rock, and I tell you that's not the right remedy. Okay, we got to stop that. We got to stop that. So that's where the checklists come into play. I hear you whenever you say the checklists are not good enough. I would love to hear that feedback, so that way maybe we can make some changes to that checklist. Okay. The second thing.
We need the feedback too.
Of course. Yeah. No, I agree. I also have recently gotten a PIO officer, and she is going to be working her hinds tail off to get that communication to you guys. So we're going to get it in multiple different ways. I can also tell you that the claims office and the staff at side of the house have now contracted with some media folks, so that way we can get media out to you guys in multiple different ways, whether it's newspaper, whether it's postcard mailings, things like that. We want to be able to communicate to you, because I think that's the biggest problem is we have really good information to get to you, but we're not getting it out appropriately, and we're not getting it out quick enough.
And I need to bring something up to that point. I write a column for the Optic. And a while back, I was pressured by someone from the claims office to retract a truth and replace it with a lie. So be careful.
How we communicate.
How you go back and make sure if you put something out there, it is true.
I promise you, if it's coming from our side of the house, it will be true.
Okay.
I promise. The next thing that we've been doing is making sure we ask to communicate with those lawyers. So the meeting that occurred a couple of months ago, where we sat down and we listened and asked and let the lawyers ask any kind of questions they could possibly have, we're communicating that back. We promise that that's going to be a reoccurring thing, so that way if they have questions, they can communicate. Very much how you guys are doing in the town hall, it's going to be very similar to them. The next thing is creating more staff coming in, and I hear you guys that it's confusing and it's not the staff that you want to see. But I can tell you from the folks that have been brought in, they have been moving heaven and earth to get your claims through. So I'm probably sharing a number that I shouldn't, but I think it's good information for you guys to know. There was a large chunk of stuff that was held up because they didn't have enough staff in order to process it. In a matter of 30 days, I think it's even less than that, they've been able to push through 280 of those issues, okay? So they are moving, guys, I promise. And I promise it's not as quick as you want, but with the staff that is coming in, they are dedicated to you guys. They want to make sure that this gets off their plate, okay? I promise. And I can tell you, I have seen a change in the last 3-4 weeks with the new staff that have come in, and I see Ashley shaking her head, she sees a change. The folks that are coming in, we're able to sit down with the policy team and say that policy doesn't make sense. It's not common sense. Let's make it common sense. We rewrite the policy together to make it common sense for New Mexicans to benefit you guys, okay? So I need you to just give me, if you lost trust in the claims office, give the state, give us 30 more days. We're gonna start making a change, okay, guys? I promise.
What do we do when they start turning off our bills and start trying to repossess because we are running out of
money.
Our insurance
Yeah.
money, we're running out of our savings money.
Yeah.
And right now, we're not coming to town because we can't afford it.
Right.
Right now,
or you're not getting groceries.
to visit my daughter for 5 months, moved to Colorado. I haven't gone to see her because we can't afford to. You know, there's so much out there. People need help, and we can't pay our bills with promises.
No, I know.
That's the problem.
Are the attorneys getting partial payments for us? Have they been offered them?
As in, sorry, reframe, ask your question one more time.
I've never heard anything about a partial payment from our attorneys. Is it not available to them?
It should be available, and Jen, I don't know if you want to answer that one. It should be available to them. It's available to everybody. So, is that true?
We can only issue compensation directly to claimants. If you have an attorney, you will have to pay your attorney fee from the compensation that you receive from the claims office. The way that the law is written, we cannot give claimant money to an attorney. We cannot pay attorney fees. We can only pay claimants directly.
Are people with attorneys being offered partial payment?
Yes, yes, sir. Anybody can apply for partial payment. If you have questions on your claim specifically and don't want to have to go through your attorney, you can call the helpline. You can walk into any of our public offices. If it didn't happen that way in the past, it will happen this way in the future. We'll make a note to reinforce that with the staff, that if somebody walks in the office and they would like an update on their claim and they have an attorney, we are authorized to talk to them. We will just ask you to sign a form. It's called the intent to proceed form, and we actually have them out here in the hallway. There's navigators in the hallway. They have the intent to proceed forms. If somebody comes up and asks for an update on their claim and signs the intent to proceed form because they have an attorney, we will give them an update on their claim.
Will they waive their right to litigate down the road if they take partial payment?
No.
So one of the things, I actually want to answer this question. So one of the things that Jen mentioned earlier on in the presentation was how the FEMA claims office has agreed to sit down with each lawyer and go line by line by line with that lawyer to say, like, and these are examples, so please do not hold me to this. Let's say you lost fencing and we have the amount for how much it's going to take for fencing. We can go ahead and push that through as a partial payment. Well, because what ultimately you guys are saying is we're holding up big ticket items because we need more documentation while we're waiting on the smaller things. Let's get those smaller things pushed through. That's going to sit down. That's going to happen with that lawyer whenever they're going through line by line by line. Okay, so we can.
Very backwards now. You should be handing out the price of a house first thing.
I agree. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. You guys lost everything. But the price of a house is going to have a couple of more questions that come with it. What kind of lumber built it? How old is it? How many rooms did you have? What square footage? Whereas if you lost fence and you... Okay, so then when we sit down and do the line by line, we'll get it pushed out quicker. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything, I mean, it seems like it's apparent here that there's lack of communication that's going on, and so we want to communicate. You guys want to communicate better with the community? Okay, what about those areas, especially out where we live? There is no internet. You're lucky if AT&T AT&T gets out there. Can you guys do anything to help that?
So we actually are, we're working with our, with what we call private partners, so AT&T, to get out there. So, I actually have a comms person who sits on my team. He comes out to Mora and San Miguel, once a month. And what he does is he has a phone that's AT&T and he has a phone that's Verizon and he has the coverage map. And he drives the whole county and watches his bars as they go up and down, up and down. And whenever he hits an area that the coverage map says that there's coverage, but he has no bars, he immediately picks up AT&T corporate and says, "You're lying on your coverage map. Let's fix it. How do we fix it?" Yeah. Unfortunately, we all.
Is he here when he calls AT&T?
Oh God, they hate him. They hate him. They hate him. Yes, ma'am.
For providers, I mean, a lot of us use T-Mobile, and it's really thought, yeah. I don't know if you know, from my team, but T-Mobile has to make a lot of it because the coverage stuff too.
It's terrible. It is terrible. I will tell you, so what I could probably need from you, and I know that I have a couple of folks from the delegation in the room, and Codell, please do not kill me for this. We need letters. We need letters because what we have to go to is now we have to go to FCC. I know, welcome to bureaucratic BS. We have to go to the FCC and say, we don't have enough coverage out here because they're third party. So they don't listen to me. I'm the state, but I can yell and kick and scream, but it's up to them. It's when they make money and how they make money. And we all know how private entities. Yeah, we'll start working on it. Yes, ma'am.
So I want to talk about the forest because I think that that's been neglected in the conversation and forest repair. So an arborist is not a forester, and a forester is not a regulator. So when you start talking to those different levels, you're going to get different prices on what it's going to cost you to grow your forest. And so it's not so restoration forester is covering the loss of wildlife and loss of soil and how you actually restore your forest or help restore your forest. And we're talking about slopes that are not accessible and all those things. So I know you talked about $5,000 to $9,000 per acre. And I mean, then I should get that to a lot of my land that I love to my forest. So the cost of restoring that forest is something that I want to do start to do in my limited time that I have left. I won't see it happen, but I want it for my future generations. It's going to cost a lot more than that. And I think that what happened with people is they were negligent in the very beginning. They were lacking arborists, foresters, or whatever to go out immediately and start assessing these damages and the cost of the exactly. And we're going to start with you.
So I even at the very beginning, it's like, you know, when our house burns and so forth, that, you know, we went to the center at the Mora Middle School. I asked, when is FEMA coming? Well, 2 weeks after, you guys still don't meet the criteria. You know? So, we got a lot of negative feedback for, we didn't trust you guys. And then all this waiting and stuff, it just added more to it. And so please don't take it personal. Any of you up there, please don't take it personal. It's not a personal attack on you, but it's hard to trust when we've been broken.
No, and it honestly, I know you say don't take it personal, but I'll tell you, I take it personal. You guys are my constituents. You are my people. I'm here. That's my whole job. I mean, and you guys, some of you may have heard me make this rant. I got put in this position. I have 3 years until Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham moves out. I have 3 years to make a change. So I'm gonna work heaven and earth in order to move to make a change for you guys in those 3 years. Because after then, it doesn't mean anything to me anymore unless I sit on the other side and start advocating in a different way. So I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm working my hinds hell off to make sure that this is taken care of. I would love for it to be taken care of before 3 years, but look at where we are right now. You know?
Can you address the first question again?
Yeah, no, sorry, I do apologize. We got off on a tangent. Okay, so remember earlier when I was talking to the lady behind you and I told you that there's an assessment being done. That assessment includes the trees and the tree structure. I'm waiting on that assessment to help drive some of that conversation because we all collectively know you can't have a conversation if you don't have the data to back it up, or I'm just sitting there yelling and screaming and thin air. I can't address the numbers conversation. That is gonna be something that I would have to hand off to the claims office, but what I can tell you is once I get that data and get that information, that's when we can start having that numbers conversation to go back in. One of the things that I can say, and Jen kick me underneath the table if I say this wrong. Let's say they give you a notice of loss for your trees and you identify that it is not enough money. That's where you have the opportunity to come back to the claims office and advocate for yourself and say, this was not enough money. Please help me, please.
You want us to go through all this again?
How about this? You come to me and I'll fight for you.
So I get that. I get that you're saying that you can then come back.
I know.
And do that.
I know.
Do you know how much I have to learn? Do you know how many people I've talked to, different experts and stuff like that? I have talked to research what is it going to take to help to restore my forest, my severely disturbed soil, which will not come back for decades at all. What about the seed, the native seed that we need to put up there? And besides the fact that because the wildlife, we're in the loss of wildlife, and then you've got the tree farm that's now been up, it's getting money to up their seedlings and stuff like that. You're looking at 5 years down the road. And, I mean, I could give you so much information about whether you get the forest to fall, whether you do contour filling, whether you haul it out, what it costs an acre to haul out and infrastructure land, in 50 years, you're hoping for another fire to go certain things, and then the amount of what wildlife looking for grass, you plant your trees, they're going to come and eat your baby trees. I mean, there's so many different layers to this.
Not to mention the water. We just don't have the water starting for.
So I'm just saying that it's so complicated what they're talking about, which is way too low for organization of just forest research. Personally, what I would like to see is if the Forest Service said, we're going to come in and we're going to take care of this. And I would say, I would love that. Because I don't want to have all this information. I can't do a lot of that work anymore. Yeah, I can't do it. And then you're also going to have, once people start getting started. No, you're fine. People monies, beginnings of their monies for all these things, the fencing and all that kind of stuff, and even rebuilding their houses, you're going to have an influx of people looking for contractors, and they're not going to be there because it hasn't been staggered over this last period of time where people can start hiring people in a staggered manner.
It doesn't matter because FEMA's going to send somebody to look at satellite imagery to counteract your experts.
So what I would like to tell you is I would love to visit with you offline because I can tell that this is a passion of yours. And I know, and don't like, I want to know that. I want to know the data that you've collected. I want to know those data points because to that lines of effort that I talked about earlier, we actually have a reforestation network. So that is combined with the NMSU Reforestation Center that's here in Mora. It's also combined with State Forestry, who is currently right now has a bill on the floor. So there you go. You want to help support this, you want to advocate it, call your Codell. They're tracking a bill that is on the floor right now for reforestation for these communities. How much is that bill for? It's $30 million is what they're asking for right now. Again, and that's different from claims office money because we agree with you. We agree that this reforestation is a huge deal and we want to make sure that it's done right. So it's part of that whole lines of effort that we talked about. So I really want to connect with you offline because I want to get your data and start making sure that we're plugging that into the reforestation network that we're doing.
Extremely weird because there's something related to this. If people accept the reforestation money from the claims office, there's going to be programs coming down the line for reforestation. Will they be eligible for the additional programs?
So it depends on if it's a duplication of benefits. If it's duplication, and hang on, because I see Manny shaking his head about this. That's what we're here for, is to make sure that it's not a duplication. What I'm telling you, hang on, is that I want to make sure that we're maximizing the amount of money that we have on the ground. So let's say that the claims office pays a certain amount. This is a round figure. Let's say that they pay $10,000 for a square patch of land, okay? But there's still more work to be done. That the other programs that we're talking about coming down, most of that is going to be in coordination. So let's say that you guys apply for that program. That program is then going to reach back out to us, whether it's DCM, who's collecting multiple different program avenues, or the claims office, and they're gonna ask how much money did they get and what was it for? Then that other program is then going to make sure that they're not giving you an additional $10,000 for the remainder of that. But it doesn't mean that they are not getting money. It means that it's gonna compensate you for the other portion of that money.
The reality is, many of the people that are receiving the reforestation money, that's becoming rebuilding life money. So basically, it comes down to if they get reforestation money, and then another agency comes in at a later date, they won't help them because they've already been paid to do it.
Well, no one's saying that they won't help them and saying they're gonna sit down and look at their case and see how they can help them. And I can tell you that that's our whole point. You know, Ashley talked earlier about how we're maximizing dollars, and disaster case manager is here to make sure that we're filling those gaps. That's a part of that, is making sure that we're filling that gap. So if there's still a gap to be had, DCM is here to help advocate for those folks, those individuals to fill that gap. Oh. Hang on. We've got multiple people that have been raising their hand for a while. Yes, sir.
Okay. When I ask as a favor to everyone here, all the victims, do not ever use the phrase, "they're gonna make you better," because you never will.
Yep.
Nope. You claim that you'll have a one-on-one with the attorneys to go over all the client's information. You did say how long it's gonna take for you to start paying out people's stuff. What I see here is a lack of staff. And you could start naming the other state agencies that want to help. They don't have the staff on what it takes to address every single problem here. I appreciate you saying, come and see me. I'll make sure. 1,000 people could be knocking on your door.
That's what I get paid for.
Careful.
I know.
Be careful what you say. Again, the flooding, the rebuilding, the rehabbing, anything that we're gonna do, without that watershed being healthy, you throw your money away.
Right.
So unless you give us an answer as to how you're gonna fix that watershed, because everything depends on that. The water that they use for grazing, the water that they use for hay, the water that they use for drinking.
Correct.
All of that is gonna come to an end.
Correct.
You got a problem up there, and you're gonna start seeing contamination to where the people cannot use that water. And that's happening not only in Mora County, it's happening in Sutter Gate. We are going to have problems. So please do not put another 180 days to answer. Leave that open, because the way I see it, you're gonna be dealing with this for 30 years.
No, I completely agree with you, sir. Let's go with you, man. You've been raising your hand for a little while. Yes, yep, you.
I appreciate all of you all coming, and I know Jennifer and Steve already. You had your issues of also with the fire. But the next meeting that we have like this, are we gonna have new people presenting something?
So the plan is yes, but it's not presenting, like, it's not new people up here because we've cycled them out because us have gone home. It's because it's new people presenting, because they're the SMEs to talk about whatever new.
Well, why don't we have another meeting with all the new people, and then have a town hall, which is, I think you learn more from us, or we learn more from you with a question and answer, rather than, I gotta give my presentation, you know? That's what I'm here for. We're all here to learn together. And if you have Mr. Joseph or Jonas with the Farm Service, and Mr. Snyder with the whatever, and I haven't even met you yet.
I'm
But,
yeah.
I mean, the thing is like, why don't we have a whole room full of experts and a town hall to ask these different people instead of just a short, and because I think we're all going, wow, we didn't even think about that.
I think, I'll be honest, I think the big thing was we were trying not to overwhelm you guys with all of them.
That is, how we can say,
we've got another, group here, oh, we've got to think about and provide more information to, and get more documentation to. So if we do something like that, guys, I think that's gonna have to occur on a Saturday, because even just on. We've got spring break coming up, we've got a whole big school here, you can use this. Okay, so we plan on doing something like that. Ashley talked earlier about the contractor fair. We're looking at doing also a recovery fair as well to address those concerns. Because, I mean, we're already coming up on the time slot right now, and I don't think that we've answered near half of the questions that you guys still may have. So I know we got 3 minutes left, so let's do, I see 4 hands right now. Let's answer the next 4 questions. And we'll go from there. Yes, ma'am.
Why are you not covering, or not paying for it through cost of people that hire their own private firms?
Mark, I assume this question's for the claims office? Yeah. Okay, so if somebody did hire a private forester and they bring the documentation, they can submit that with their claim. That is compensable. I'll go with the yellow shirt and then blue.
This has to do with watershed and also our water is being poisoned that you've been talking about. Is there a program available to us, those of us who have private wells especially, to have that water tested and to have it tested annually as we go forward, and how do we access that as we go in?
So we are supporting residents with water well testing. Tony there in the back can help you with testing for your well.
What's your telephone number?
Tony is a disaster case manager. So,
yeah, I'm not one of his managers. So you know, or you can see there's new of us out there right now.
And then in addition to the immediate fix to support folks, because we know that water well testing is an immediate need, which is why we're bringing kits. We're trying to get that resource. We are also working with the New Mexico Environment Department to establish longer term testing capabilities. So we'll continue to keep you updated as we establish that. But we see that concern and are working to establish a long-term fix for that.
My next piece is also help the watershed. We're up in Pullman and we listened to helicopter airplanes for weeks and weeks and weeks. And what they seeded was wheat. It germinates quickly. It helps with immediate erosion, but it's now 3 feet high. It's dry. You drop a match, it's a fire. What idiot thought to spread wheat? It's all over the mountains. It is in our fields. It's everywhere. And it is more of a hazard than a benefit. What needs to be seeded is native grasses and board. So can anything be done about this? I mean, we had a 2-foot snow and it's still standing up straight. Lightning strike, we've got a forest fire. It's all over our land. And everybody else is, it's a problem. Look at that. People are being put around. Look at it.
Is it invasive?
So I know that we're meeting with a steering committee that includes all of the federal partners, including agencies that participated in reseeding efforts. We're actually meeting with them on Thursday of this week. So that issue will be. But I do just want to say, knowing time is short, that we're prioritizing that interagency coordination and improved accountability. So thank you for bringing that up.
It's more of a problem than an answer. Let's put it that way.
We hear you loud and clear. Yes, sir, in the blue.
Yes, back in November of 2022, my wife and I filed claim for both our business and our first home. And we're now on our second or third extension. Nothing's been fully finalized yet. Relative to the business, we've become increasingly frustrated. Back in December, I wrote a lengthy 2 pages email, apology sheriff, John Stark. John was very responsive and told us the next day trying to get some stuff clarified. But it seems to stall yet again, I never heard from Paula. But one of the things that's been problematic is the process that you have involved with document that you to help further clarify the compensation that claims to be requested. With respect to our business, we're now on the board of exact and still haven't finalized. With the fourth one, we did ask our navigator for a copy of the document, and she was told by the higher up that they were no longer going to be providing copies of the document to claim to review. I find that to be highly unusual and disconcerting, because how can we sign off on a claim if we don't know the numbers, what the exact that are items? Along those same lines, we turned in our tax return, we have an EIN number, our business license, along with the tax return, we're supposed to schedule for our income and choose what our business loss is. I would think that if a federal tax return is good enough for the IRS, a federal tax return should be good enough for the claims office. Upon passing it on to the claims reviewer, it's gone in circles. Nothing's been done. Now we're being asked to provide copies of the check stubs from the vendors that we sell our products to. So we've had to get 3 years worth of check stubs to provide copies to the claims office. So I don't understand really what's the point of asking for the tax return if a federal document is not good enough. So again, we're solved to all of that. So you can ask for those questions first, and then I have a second.
Okay, the first one I'm going to address, and I already saw her opening up her notebook. Paula's here, and we'll get your information to make sure that we work with you moving forward. I am going to ask Dawn to talk about a document in a second. As far as your business claim, I agree. Those federal tax returns should be sufficient. So let's work with Paula and make sure that we give you the dedicated attention to help get you across the finish line, in particular because you submitted way back in 2022 before we even began operations. So I hear you, I hear your voice. We're going to make sure that we do everything we can to make it right. Dawn, do you want to talk about Xactimate?
Yeah, right quick. The Xactimate program is an insurance-based estimating software system. So that's what we generate all of our estimates from. And I agree with you, that should be and will be available to you. Initially, based on some legal guidance and policy decisions, we were not releasing that initially, but it has been discussed very recently that we are going to be providing that.
So will the navigators be made aware that they can?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I add on to the personal question. This gentleman here made a comment earlier about no partial payment. I kind of agree with this thing because our navigator is now telling us that we did get one partial payment sometime back, and on the personal claim, she's telling us that we can get no more partial payments until everything is combined into one final. So I'm a little bit confused with that. And I also want to know what you all plan on doing for everyone whose properties have decreased in value from fire. Some properties have lost value and the resale value is severely diminished. No one wants to use the area and severely burned. We were informed that FEMA is not doing, the claims office is not doing anything with respect to that. Quote unquote, there have not been enough sales in San Miguel and Mora County and create any type of compensation to anyone. So I'm a little concerned about that. And another thing, well, they told me that if we did submit anything to them now, even if we would get an estimate of the property value now from a realtor or from an appraiser, that even if we would submit something for being compensated, it would most likely result in a zero payment because the claims office has nothing to pay for that.
Our taxes actually went up.
So there's a few different questions in there that I'm going to address. The first one, partial payments. There was a very small amount of time where we were entertaining the idea of rolling everything into final payments. We have since decided not to do that. We are issuing partial payments. We will make an effort to re-educate the navigators and let them know we are doing partial payments. As far as the reduction in value, two parts to that. If you have incurred losses because your property lost value, that is compensable. Come forth, submit your documentation, that's compensable. If you have not incurred losses because of the reduction in property and your value, submit the documentation we have, we will review it, and we'll make a determination. So that's two parts there.
We would get an appraiser,
You can submit that, yes, sir.
Cost of that, we will be reimbursed for that cost that you're incurring to get those numbers.
Yes, sir. So if you need to pay experts to get an estimate, that is compensable. I'm making notes actively as you speak about things that we need to revisit with the navigators. So we will do that for sure.
One thing that you haven't made clear to everyone, I understand the final deadline to file a claim is November 14th.
A notice of loss, yes, sir.
So what happens to folks who have flood damage who never filed a claim, notice of loss, that have damage after November 14th? How are you going to address that? And number two, you did say earlier that you have a program and policy guide that says that if you close your case and you need to reopen it later, is that written in your policy guide that is something that has done?
Yes, that's in the policy guide. As far as losses incurred after the November 14th, 2024 deadline, this is why we're encouraging everybody to come forth and submit a notice of loss to get your information in the system. That way, if you incur additional losses, you can come back and reopen your claims. We need everybody to submit a notice of loss, even if it's just for smoke damage, even if it's just for NFIP, even if it's just for evacuation, because once you're in the system, then those different options are afforded to you.
All right, I promise one more question to the lady in the blue behind. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I was just going to say, the president said that we were going to get this money as a whole. He didn't say that your FEMA workers had to be paid out of that money. That money is for the people that lost their homes, who need to be compensated for everything they lost. He didn't say no fences, he didn't say no hay. He said everything as a whole. He didn't say you have to pay your workers good money and leave the people. We're all claimants, am I correct? We all pay here. Yeah, that doesn't mean that you guys have to pay your workers out of that money, because that's not what it was for. It was allocated for this. And talk about spending money. There's a property that has 6 mobile homes unoccupied. They've been there for about, I'm gonna say less than a year. They put them up. Nobody lives in them. Those are rat cages. That's what they are. FEMA put them up there. I don't know what for the landowners to have them. It's a registration on those mobile homes. Nobody lives in them. Why don't you take those mobile homes to somebody that lost their property and put it up there and make it safe for them to live in, instead of having it being wasted there? Thousands of dollars are going monthly to that property owner, and nobody lives in them. Another thing, the 180 days, that was your expiration. If you're a contractor and they tell you you have a year to complete that project and you do not complete it, guess what? You're going to get fined. And I think you need to get fined, because those 180 days are far from over. And we need to start this all moving. I've attended many of these meetings. My cousin lost her home, 88 years old. Well, guess what? You want your documentation, you want to know this a lot, you want to know this. How the hell are you gonna get it if your home burned? There's no way. And at 88 years old, you tell me, what woman goes into a courthouse? They need proof of IDs, and they need proof of this and proof of. How do you explain that? They can't get that. At 88 years old, they're already comfortable. Why make them comfortable? The Forest Service didn't ask them to own that property over there. I'm gonna burn it. They didn't ask that. This notice of law, 180 days, everything is a bunch of yes, and I've attended many of these meetings. And there is no way. You need to accommodate these people 180 days, and that's the bottom line. Pay these people. There's no reason for notice of loss after notice of loss after notice of. These people are tired of it already. It's time you get the ball rolling.
Amen. I'm gonna take one, thank you, ma'am. I'm gonna take one more from Toby, and I do want to remind everyone that if you have questions about your claim or would like to speak to a navigator or disaster case manager, they are out here, so please feel free to utilize that while they're there. Go ahead, Toby.
You know, I'm assuming you're in control of the office now, the glad what's gone. And if what you're saying is correct, if you're starting to see movement over the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Absolutely.
Then we were correct. Gladwell needed to kick off. We were correct. So we're watching, and we need some action out of you there. It needs to change. And the next bureaucrat that you're gonna hire or advertise for in the next 30 days, that ain't the amateur. We need some New Mexico judge that can hold you guys accountable as well. Because there's no accountability at all.
Amen.
Thank you, Toby.
Number prices went sky high. Fire hit now. Try building a house. Try even building a deck. So the lumber prices are sky high. You can't afford it. They couldn't afford to rebuild for my aunt. She passed away. You know, that wasn't even this thing about the lumber prices. People don't give a shit. They don't even care. If you rebuild, but you know what? It was our money. It was our money, not FEMA, because they didn't have my grandma. They didn't have nobody else. Our money.
I have something to say. Okay, stand up. Stand up and talk what you have to say. Open it up. Neighbors helping neighbors are out there helping a lot of people in the community that have been burned out, need propane, appliances. Neighbors helping neighbors in Las Vegas is reaching out. Go to them. They're still giving out help, vouchers for propane, refrigerators. You need help, go there. At least I feel like somebody is on my side because they helped me. At least I feel like our community here in San Miguel County is standing up for our fire victims. We have to stand up for each other. We have to support each other and make them understand what we're going through, because they go home to their nice recliner, their nice TV, and their screened-in room, while we're over here freezing our ass off, just trying to live and keep our propane going, our electricity going. I'm to the end of my rope. I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting pretty damn close that the electric company's gonna be telling me, hey, I need some money. We need hope. We need more than I'm sorry and we're trying. We need hope for each other. God bless you all. Each and every one of you have enough to stand up for our rights, that we need help in this community. It's us. You know, we're paying them. We pay their salaries. Who pays ours?
I'm just gonna say one more thing, and then I'm gonna hand it over to Ally to close us out for the night, because it appears like we've addressed most of the questions. So the one thing that kept coming to me over and over tonight as I listened to everyone's stories was something that I grown up with, and the term is lo siento. Like, I can feel the angst and the frustration and the emotions in this room. My house did not burn down, but I still have a house in Rosiada. The majority of the navigators are all impacted residents as well. They are people from community that have stood up to try and help other community members, and I absolutely agree. Neighbors Helping Neighbors has done an amazing job. They have an entire disaster case manager program that works with the state disaster case manager program. So although we're different entities, we all have the same goal. And I really, really appreciate you guys coming forth and telling us how you feel, because that's how we're going to get better, is by addressing the issues. I'm going to hand it over to Allie now. Thank you.
I just want to close and say thank you guys for coming out. I asked in the very beginning why you were here, and I truly mean that. I wanted to hear from you guys, because sometimes we spend so much time up here talking that we don't give you guys enough time to sit over there and talk. Like Jen said, there are folks out in the atrium that are here to help support you guys. The staff that's standing up here is going to be here until the end, until the last person leaves. So please come visit with us. Please ask the questions that you need, especially if we didn't get an opportunity to get with you guys tonight. And with that, be safe going home. We will see you next time.